All right, get ready to dive deep because today we're heading straight into the wild world of ancient Greek philosophy.
Sounds exciting.
You guys sent in a whole bunch of readings on Thrasymachus and Callicles, two figures who often get called uh, immoralists.
Yeah?
And we're going to try to understand why that is and what their critiques of justice can teach us.
It's not just some ancient history lesson, you know?
Right?
These guys raise questions that still make us a little uncomfortable today.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what really is justice?
Yeah.
And is it just a nice story we tell ourselves to feel better?
Ooh, I like where this is going already. But before we get into these rabble-rousers, maybe we should back up a bit. What was the typical view of justice back in ancient Greece?
Well, picture a world where justice is basically like divine law,
Okay.
straight from Zeus himself, you know?
Okay.
That's what you find in Hesiod, for example.
Right.
Honesty, fairness, respecting the law, it all comes from the gods.
Right.
And if you break the rules, well, let's just say you might have some bad cosmic karma coming your way, and maybe even your grandkids will feel it too.
Oh, wow. So a strong religious element to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm guessing not everyone was totally on board with this kind of rigid system.
Yeah, you're right. Not everyone.
Yeah.
If you look at those Homeric heroes like Achilles in the Iliad,
Oh, yeah.
you see a different idea of virtue. It's
Okay.
more about being the best at what you do, you know, strong, courageous, clever, kind of a more practical, get things done approach to justice.
I see. So we already have some tension brewing here. What's good for the community versus what's good for the individual. Is that where these immoralists come in?
Yeah, exactly. Thrasymachus and Callicles, they step onto the stage and basically yell, "Hold on a second, are we really sure we know what justice is?"
Right.
They're like the philosophical rebels of their time, shaking things up.
All right, let's start with Thrasymachus. He crashes into Plato's Republic and just drops this bombshell. Justice is nothing other than the advantage of the stronger. That's quite a statement. Is he simply saying might makes right?
Well, at first glance, it seems like it.
Yeah.
He says those in power, whether it's the rich elite or the majority in a democracy, they make the laws and then they call it justice to control everyone else.
Right.
He's got a pretty cynical view, that's for sure.
So he sees justice as a way to manipulate people. Is that it?
He actually goes even further than that.
Okay.
He says justice is the advantage of another person, meaning acting justly always helps someone else, but at your expense.
Huh.
It's like he's not just defining justice, he's taking the whole system down.
So if we follow his logic, being just basically means you're a fool. And what about this real ruler he keeps talking about? Who is that supposed to be?
Well, he admires a ruler who's like a master craftsman.
Okay.
But instead of working with wood or metal, this ruler is really good at manipulating people, you know, to get what they want. Okay?
He even compares it to a shepherd fattening up his sheep. Not for the sheep's benefit, of course, but for his own profit.
Oh, wow.
Thrasymachus thinks this ruler embodies a kind of ruthless intelligence.
That's a scary thought. If rulers are like shepherds, does that make us all just sheep waiting to be used?
Mm-hmm.
How does Socrates respond to this? I can't imagine he was happy with this justice is for suckers idea.
Well, Socrates, being Socrates, he takes a step back and uses his logic and reason.
Yeah.
He compares ruling to other crafts, like medicine or shepherding, actually.
Okay.
He says a real craft serves a good that's bigger than the person doing it, you know, beyond their self-interest.
Right.
So a doctor's goal is to make the patient healthy, not just to make money.
Of course, you wouldn't trust a doctor who's just in it for the cash. I think I see where Socrates is going with this.
Right. He's arguing that a true ruler, just like a good doctor, would care about the well-being of the people they rule, not just their own power.
And he points out that real crafts create good things where everyone benefits. Like one person's health doesn't mean someone else has to be sick.
So does that mean Socrates wins round one?
Mm-hmm.
Did he totally shut down Thrasymachus' argument?
Well, not so fast.
Okay.
Thrasymachus is a tough cookie. Remember, he's not trying to change the definition of justice. He's trying to show us that it's a rigged game, one that's stacked against the individual.
Right.
And while Socrates makes some good points, he doesn't really address that deeper critique.
This is really making me think. We use the word justice all the time, but Thrasymachus makes us face what it actually means. Is it really just if it only benefits those in power?
Yeah, that's the uncomfortable question he leaves us with. And just when you think you've got it figured out, along comes Callicles, taking this critique of justice to a whole new level.
Oh, man. This is where things get really interesting. I read that Callicles brings in this idea of natural justice, which sounds even more radical than anything we've heard so far.
Callicles is definitely a wild card. He throws conventional morality out the window and looks to nature for guidance, and it leads him to some pretty surprising conclusions.
All right, well, I'm ready for the ride.
Buckle up. Okay, so Callicles, he doesn't just disagree with conventional morality.
Right.
He, like, totally obliterates it.
Yeah, he's not messing around. So what's the core of his argument? What does he think is so wrong with how we usually think about justice?
He makes this really sharp distinction between nomos,
Right.
the laws and conventions that society makes up,
Right.
and physis, the laws of nature.
Okay, I see.
And he thinks conventional justice is like a big trick,
Oh, wow.
a way for the weak masses to, hold down the strong, talented people.
So it's like society's holding back those who are naturally gifted. Is that what he's saying?
Exactly. He thinks those rules are there to stifle anyone who's really exceptional.
Hmm.
It's a form of control, like forcing everyone to be nice and follow the rules, even if it means crushing true greatness.
Wow. So if he thinks society's laws are artificial, what does he want instead? Are we going back to the Stone Age, fighting over scraps?
He actually looks to the animal kingdom for inspiration.
Oh, interesting.
He says, look at nature, the strong prey on the weak. That's just how it is, the natural order.
Okay.
And he even uses historical examples, like those powerful Persian emperors conquering everyone
Right.
to argue that, hey, this is how the world really works.
Yeah, I can see why he gets called an immoralist, that's for sure. But is he just saying that brute force wins every time? Like, the strongest person always gets their way?
It's more complicated than that.
Okay.
He really values things like intelligence and courage,
Wow.
like those classic Homeric virtues we talked about.
Yes.
He thinks that the superior individuals, the ones who have those qualities in abundance, they should get more of the good things in life.
So it's not just about raw power for Callicles. He's got his own idea of what makes someone truly great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He thinks that conventional morality, all that talk about fairness and moderation, it actually prevents people from reaching their full potential.
I see.
He's all about ambition, striving for greatness, pushing past the limits that society tries to impose.
It's like he's romanticizing this idea of the superior individual, someone who's not bound by the rules of normal morality.
You got it.
It reminds me of Nietzsche, his concept of the Übermensch.
Yeah, you're picking up on some important stuff here. He sees conventional morality as a kind of prison, something that holds back the people who are meant for extraordinary things.
Yeah, but then the big question is, who decides who is superior? And how far can they go with this special treatment?
That's the huge question, right? It does seem like a slippery slope.
Yeah, anyone could just claim they're exceptional and deserve to be treated differently.
Exactly.
So what does Socrates do about this? Does he just give up and agree with Callicles? Like, okay, you're right, it's a jungle out there.
Well, Socrates never backs down from a good philosophical debate.
Of course not.
He challenges Callicles' view of nature, arguing that true strength comes from harmony and order, not just the power to dominate.
Yeah, okay.
He points to the cosmos, with its perfect balance and structure.
Right. Socrates always loved using the cosmos as a model for how we should live.
It's a key part of his philosophy.
Yeah, but sometimes it feels a little too idealistic, doesn't it? Like, the cosmos might be all about harmony, but down here on Earth, things are a lot messier.
I see your point.
Yeah.
It really gets to the core of the argument between Callicles and Socrates.
Mm.
But Socrates has another trick up his sleeve.
Oh, what's that?
He finds a really interesting contradiction in what Callicles is saying.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Callicles is all about hedonism, right? The idea that pleasure is the ultimate good.
Right.
But at the same time, he admires those virtues of intelligence and courage, even though they don't always lead to more pleasure.
I see the problem. Sometimes doing the right thing, the courageous thing, even if you're strong and capable, means you have to sacrifice something. Maybe even experience pain or hardship.
Exactly.
It's not always about chasing pleasure, is it?
No, it's not. Callicles is stuck between these two different ideas of what's good in life. Following your desires versus doing what's right, even when it's hard. It's a tension that philosophers have been wrestling with for centuries.
It makes you think about your own life, your own choices.
Hmm.
Do you always take the easy route, the one that feels good right now?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you sometimes push yourself to do what's harder, what feels more meaningful in the long run?
That's what's so great about these old dialogues.
Yeah?
They're not just theoretical exercises,
Right.
They make us think about these dilemmas in our own lives, to look at our values and what motivates us.
Yeah, for sure. And Callicles does have a point, right? Sometimes conventional morality can feel really limiting,
Yeah,
even suffocating.
it's true. But then, if everyone just did whatever they wanted with no regard for others, wouldn't society fall apart pretty quickly?
I guess that's the flip side. We need some kind of structure, right? Some agreement on what's right and wrong
Right.
to function as a society.
Exactly.
But where do you draw that line between individual freedom and the good of the community?
That's the question, isn't it? Keeps popping up over and over in these conversations.
It feels like we're ending up with more questions than answers. But maybe that's the whole point of philosophy,
Maybe you're right.
to keep asking those tough questions, to keep wrestling with those big dilemmas, even if there's no easy solution.
It's about the journey, not the destination.
Well, in that case, I'm ready to keep exploring.
Good.
So where do we go from here? How do we wrap up this dive into the minds of these so-called immoralists?
I think the important thing is to remember that Thrasymachus and Callicles weren't just trying to be shocking or controversial.
Yeah,
They wanted us to really think about what we believe and why.
right.
They challenged the foundations of our moral systems, even if they didn't offer any easy answers.
They were playing devil's advocate, but in a way that forced us to see some uncomfortable truths.
Exactly.
So were they truly immoral? Or were they just asking the questions that no one else dared to ask?
That's the beauty of philosophy. It's all about interpretation, perspective, and ongoing debate. There are no simple answers, and that's okay. What matters is that we engage with these ideas, wrestle with them, let them change how we understand the world.
Well said. Well, I think it's time to wrap up part 2 of our deep dive into those ancient Greek immoralists.
Okay.
Come back next time as we continue to explore these thought-provoking ideas and how they've shaped how we think about justice, morality, and what it means to live a good life.
Sounds good.
Until then, keep those philosophical wheels turning. Okay, so after all that, where do we stand? Were Thrasymachus and Callicles really immoral, or were they just, brutally honest about how things work? I mean, their arguments still feel relevant today.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's more complicated than just calling them immoral. The really interesting thing is how they make us think about whether morality is just a tool,
Yeah.
a way to control people, especially the masses.
It's like they're saying, hey, look around, the system is playing you and you're falling for it. It's kind of scary, but then you also wonder, what if they're right?
Exactly. They make us question things we usually take for granted.
Yep.
Like, is justice really about fairness, or is it about who's in charge? Is a good life all about having fun, or is there more to it? These are questions people are still asking today.
And their arguments with Socrates, especially in the Republic, they show that philosophy isn't about having all the answers.
Right.
It's about wrestling with these really tough questions, even if it's uncomfortable.
Absolutely. Philosophy is a journey, not a destination.
I like that.
It's about testing ideas, refining them, maybe even throwing some out and starting fresh.
Yeah.
And these guys, even though they were controversial, they inspired so many thinkers throughout history to keep thinking about these fundamental questions.
It's true. Thinkers like Nietzsche and Foucault, they echoed a lot of those critiques of power and social control in their own work.
Yeah.
It's like a whole line of thinkers who refuse to just accept the easy answers, who make us think harder and figure things out for ourselves.
That's why these dialogues are so powerful.
Yeah.
They're not just ancient history, they're still relevant conversations today. They make us look at our own beliefs about justice, morality, and how to live a good life.
This whole deep dive has been a wild ride.
Yeah.
We've gone back to ancient Greece, wrestled with some really challenging ideas, and honestly, I think I have more questions now than when we started.
But maybe that's the whole point, right?
I think you're right. Thrasymachus and Callicles, those so-called immoralists, they actually did us a favor by shaking things up.
Yeah.
They forced us to see some hard truths about power, morality, and what it means to be human.
For sure.
And they reminded us that searching for wisdom, it's a journey, not a destination.
Nicely put.
So, to everyone listening, as you keep thinking about these ideas, the most important question to ask yourself is, what do you believe and why? Engage with these thinkers, challenge their ideas, and in the end, come to your own conclusions.
Yeah.
That's the true legacy. of Thrasymachus and Callicles. They lit a fire in our minds, that desire to question and seek truth.
And who knows, maybe that spark will lead you to your own amazing philosophical insights.
I hope so.
The world needs more thinkers who are willing to challenge the way things are and ask the tough questions, just like they did.
And that's what this deep dive is all about, giving you the tools to engage with these big ideas and think critically about the world.
Totally.
Thanks for joining us on this philosophical adventure. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into the fascinating world of ideas.